Greetings. That video still gets me hyped every single time. It's going to continue to do so. Welcome to another episode of Death, Taxes, and Sports, episode 88, I believe, on the road to episode 100. I'm very excited, very eager to get there. We're excited to bring you another episode. I'm here with my colleague, Ben Holloway. We have three more other people that are going to be on the show, but they will come at some point when they wake up from their naps. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. And you know that what's so nice about that intro is like you can just listen to it. You need to get hyped for whatever you're about to do. It's 45 seconds. Just listen. Exactly. It gets you going, man.
Exactly. So some of our guests, we have a guest, Mr. John Ryan, but we'll introduce him once when he gets on. I'm sure that he'll join us at some point. But anywho, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some NBA, some Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to have some fun with some sports movies, which is something I'm very excited about because I have the baseball segment. Thank you, Ben, for giving me that. And of course, more.
I got your back.
Indeed. But I do think that we were talking on the phone. There's been a lot of there's been a lot that's been going on in the sports world, specifically with this LIV Golf situation. I felt, or this new merger with the PGA Tour. There's definitely been a lot of discussion about it. And, you know, my thing with this is that, you know, hey, look, capitalism, economics, I get it. The money talks at the end of the day. Both you and I are sports management guys. We understand the business side of it. But for me, it's a level of hypocrisy that really comes with this, specifically when the commissioner a year ago spoke out against Saudi-backed money. And now we're not going to get too political, but it's hard not to just because of what this means for the PGA Tour.
Sorry, Jeff. I mean, you know, what's funny is Phil Mickelson has criticism as he got, and rightfully so, with some of the things that he said, turned out to be right. For the most part, what he said year and a half ago, whatever it was, he was right. And, you know, we talked about it a little bit. It was a matter of time. Money talks. There was no way that these two were never going to merge. Look at the NBA, ABA, NBA, they merge. It's better off. More money, everyone's happier. Like the merger was going to happen. I think it happened sooner than everybody anticipated, but it was always going to happen.
Yeah, I think for me, the way that the commissioner went about doing it was very suspect by not being able to. It was, to me, from what I was reading, was that it kind of blindsided a lot of people, kind of kept it under wraps, didn't really tell anyone. And he was like, oh, well, hey, guys, it's like almost as if it's like you went to Vegas and got married, but then you came back to your family and you had your wedding ring on. Like, hey, guess what, guys? We're married. And you kind of blindsided them. So I just think that from that aspect, that was really just kind of like the shocking and kind of low-key messy and pettiness for me, honestly.
It's also like, couldn't you have waited until the NBA and the NHL finals were over? Couldn't you have waited? Like, it's not like your U.S. Open, the next major is this week. If it was this week, I could understand, like, hey, like, you know, but like it's, I think, 2 weeks out. So it's like, let the NBA and the NHL do their thing. You can make this announcement. But you know,
who knows? Don't want it to leak. I think they're afraid of it leaking and they wanted to be able to control the narrative. But anyway, we'll kind of see this, and this just kind of goes into the whole thing of just about sports. And we'll just kind of wrap this up because I really want to get to Stanley Cup. It's really just about the state of sports, right? When you're talking about, you know, the changes with the NBA and the collective bargaining agreement, you're looking at all the changes with football, you know, you're looking at NHL, you know, you're looking at the youth movement within the NHL, baseball, the rule changes that we've discussed in the last episode. Just what are your thoughts on just the current state of sports and just its transition? Do you think it's a good thing or do you think it's a bad thing?
Overall, I think it is a good thing. I think that the most, I would say, who think a lot of things happening are bad is the older folks, more traditionalists. Whereas I think that, you know, with the times, like it's you have to adapt. Things are, you know, happening. I think overall it's a good thing. And I'm going to stop here because welcome Gary the Legend Johnson to the show.
Gary Legend, how you doing, sir? Awesome.
I'm good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good. And Gary, you just kind of came at the right moment. This LIV Golf thing, the whole Saudi situation. I don't know if you don't really watch golf like that, but I know that you got. I know you got a gripe, buddy. What's your gripe?
I have no gripe towards it, but the rich get richer, don't they? Like this is
That's what it is.
it was bad. It was bad when the players were doing this. When the players were getting money off this, they were like poo-pooing it. No, we can't do that. That this is wrong. This is un-American. All let's merge together and make some money together.
I mean, facts.
Welcome to sports, folks.
And a lot of people are questioning whether Saudi-backed companies are going to be successful in sports. And I'm like, well, you look at Newcastle. When they bought the Newcastle team EPL, they qualified for the Champions League in their second season in the Premiership. You look at what they've been doing in Live, being able to track all those players. So they have a relatively interesting track record when it comes to this. But anyway, let's get. What are you going to say? You got something to say, Gary?
No, I was going to say, even though sports entertainment, you look at the deal WWE has currently with Saudi Arabia, they have a 10-year deal to do 2 shows a year there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's proven track records of money to be made. And, this is all about who wants to – if you want to – is it dirty money? Is it clean money? Whoever – there's just money to be had. And people are starting to take notice now. So this whole lift thing – I thought it would come a few years down the line. I'm a little surprised that it came this quickly, but people saw the money train and said it wasn't leaving that fast.
Hey, facts on facts. But hey, we're going to transition to your favorite sport, Gary, hockey, Stanley Cup. I know how excited you are to get to this one. We won't spend too much time because I know you want to get to some of the fun stuff. But what really just kind of stands out for me, Ben, with the Stanley Cup is that there's been no team that has dominated its first 2 games in Stanley Cup since the 1996 Colorado Avalanche. They've scored 8 goals in their first 2 games. They have 9 different players that have scored, 6 players with at least 2 points for Vegas, and all 18 Knights skaters were on ice for even strength. It's just absolutely amazing the level of dominance that they've been able to have. But what stood out for you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's a little bit, I would say, somewhat surprising, 2 things. I would say that, Florida, we've talked about a lot, and rightfully so. They've gone on this Cinderella run. They beat the top 2 seeds in the East, the most points in the East, 1 and 2. They entered the Stanley Cup the last 12 games. They had won 11, including 3 in a row, taking out the Bruins, the best regular season team ever. And I talked about it last week. The Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs, out of the 16 teams, they were the second worst on penalty kill. Florida's had 7 power plays, 0 for 7. So that weakness strength has not played out, and the fact that Vegas, too, Jeff, you got the numbers and the stats on their depth, like it's crazy. Vegas's depth has definitely stood out. I got another number, but I want to let you respond before I got.
No, I'm just going to say, like, their 9 goal scorers for the first 2 games are a Stanley Cup record. They've had at least 10 players score at least 8 goals or more. Their depth is what has gotten them to this point. Their strength. And I'm just going to tell you what, man, the physicality in this game was a very big thing that really stood out for me, because their goalie for one thing, and then I'm going to try to pronounce this cat's name. Barbashev. Hopefully I said his name right.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I got it right. Hey, there we go. Several key hits, and he was on that unfortunate 2019 Blues team that beat my Bruins. That was unfortunate that he was on that team. But I tell you, physicality, strength, depth. Yeah, that's right. I had to throw a little shade towards the Blues.
That's right. No, we all get. But the other thing that so just the one other number here. So in the Stanley Cup, when the home team wins the first 2 games, 38 times they've won, 3 times they've lost. The home team wins the first 2, 38-3. That's not to say Florida's not going to win, but that's some pretty heavy numbers right there.
I mean, Gary, we talk about their depth here, and I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing because I know how much you love hockey, Gary.
Well, listen, I mean, I got a hot take. Ready, everybody?
Go for it.
I don't know much about hockey, but I know an ass whooping when I see it. And what we're watching right now is a few ass. Like, Florida's had
14-4 is the total score. 14-4.
Right. Like, and I know enough to know that Florida had a nice run through the playoffs as a low seed, but like at some point, reality is going to hit you. And unfortunately, in hockey, reality hits you in a much different way than any other sport. I know we're going to get ready to talk about the NBA in a little bit, and we can talk about that more. But in hockey, it's like it really is the haves versus the have-nots. And this is kind of indicative of it. And this is a message to everybody. Like, get yourself a hockey team, because apparently in the NHL, they care enough to not let your team suck from the beginning of an expansion. Like, you look at Vegas, they are as successful as any expansion franchise that we'll ever see. To get to the Stanley Cup final, it's twice now, right?
Vegas.
Vegas has been to the final twice,
in
correct?
6 years. Twice in 6 years.
The only team that can boast a shorter amount of time between debut and a world championship would be the Florida Marlins and the Arizona Diamondbacks, 4 seasons each.
Yeah, facts.
So they're in that company, but the difference is this could be the start of something huge. So
yeah,
look,
we'll
again,
see.
I don't know much about hockey, but I know that we got a dynasty forming if they go and pull this off
for an expansion team. But we're gonna we'll get to Stanley Cup a little bit because we want to get our guests in here. We want to welcome our guest, Mr. John Ryan, 28 professional sports bettor. You can check his work on predictiveplaybook.com. He's a weekly guest on ESPN Syracuse Fridays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can follow his Twitter at the John Ryan Sports 1. Sir, how are you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Oh, I'm great. So I apologize for being late here. We had a little bit of trouble with the internet, and thankfully we got it fixed. And I'm here, and I'm glad to be here. And thanks for having me on.
Oh, for sure. We were just wrapping up a little bit of Stanley Cup here, and just kind of before we kind of transition to maybe some NBA, Ben, what was just some of your thoughts with NHL and just like the Stanley Cup in general?
Well, I have to wonder whether the Panthers are running out of gas now. They've had such a great run. And you have to excuse my voice too.
No worries.
We have here in the East Coast, the fires in Nova Scotia are moving south, and it just kind of went into the New York City area, and it's bad. I don't know if you guys are near that area, but it's pretty bad right now.
I'm in White Plains.
Anyway,
so like we're dealing, so I'm going through it too.
Yeah, it's amazing actually. But back to the NHL here. If the Panthers and the Heat, for that matter, didn't have 2 days off to get rejuvenated, I think the rest is more important for those two teams than the other two teams who are the favorites to win the series. So I think that's huge for the Panthers to regroup, get over that bashing they took last night, and that happens in hockey. I think it happens more than we know in hockey. Where a game just gets away and you're still playing hard, but that one split second of effort is not there, and when it's not there, that's why you get these scores. So I think the Panthers will put on a pretty incredible performance in Game 3 and get back into the series. Whether they can win it or not, I think on paper, I think you guys would probably agree Vegas is probably more talented. Florida has the hot goalie, however. Whether his confidence has been shattered now or not, I doubt it.
No, those four. Sorry, John. I just quickly respond. Those 4 goals, none of them were his fault. The coach did the right thing pulling him, but I think he's experienced. I wouldn't be, if I was a Panthers fan, I would not be worried about him at all, to be honest.
I'm glad you said that because I agree too. I think that was a very smart coaching move too. I think the Panthers make this a series. It goes at least 6 or 7, and we all hope it goes 7.
Yeah, John, like it's very tough for me to see it. I'm seeing sweep here, and I really hate to say it because they've already lost their biggest defender, which is Gudis. Hopefully I said his name right. And then Aiden Hill had stellar play with 29 saves. When you look at the type of depth that Vegas has and when they're playing on the role and the way that they dominated, and then you've already lost your best defensive player, he's not going to be 100%. I just see it very I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know. Someone says Vegas in 5. We'll see. Facebook, someone said big up. Someone said in 5. But anyway, Ben, you got 6, but we'll see. You want to put that on the board? I'll bet you $1.
There you go. You get pretty
Okay,
good odds at the window
John,
for
that's a little
Vegas winning in
that's a little
5.
that's a little side joke, John, because we bet a dollar on something else.
Yeah,
So
a dollar.
He's trying to get his dollar back.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the dollar. But anyway, let's say a lot of hockey talk, but I really want to get to. We'll save the movie segment for last because I really want to spend some time. I really want to spend some time talking about this NBA Finals. MVP of the first 2 games, John. I want to toss it to you. To me, I still think it's very clear. Joker is the most important player on the court. He's the best player on the court, and he's the most valuable because we said from the very beginning that if Joker is not getting his team involved in the offense, they struggle and they're probably going to lose, which happened. But your thoughts?
Oh, I agree, and I guess I would kind of extrapolate that the most important person in the series is Spoelstra. And I've always been impressed with him. I remember his first couple years in Miami. It was LeBron's team, and Spoelstra was a guy that was just kind of there, managing the team, but not actually orchestrating how the team was going to play on the floor necessarily. But I think that's all changed. And we saw in game 2, the adjustments that he has made have been nothing short of genius. And the way his players have bought into it, I think, is second to none. You have 4 undrafted players. And I think that probably makes his job a little bit easier, too. You don't have the big contract guys that need to have the points and the stardom and all that stuff. And they really are the best team, as in TEAM, between the 2 of them. They showed it clearly in the series against the Celtics. The Celtics became unglued for so many different reasons. They had a rookie head coach that probably wasn't quite ready to be an NBA coach in a realm that I can't even imagine how overwhelming that had to be for him. But Spoelstra is very comfortable in this situation. And it's almost like if you guys play chess, and I said this to one of my buddies the other day, and for once he didn't argue with me. He actually agreed. And we weren't even betting $1 either. But I said to him, he's like, it's like playing chess, and he's a grandmaster, and you think, all right, if I can hang with this guy for like 20 moves, I might not get checkmate, and it might end up in a draw. Well, Spoelstra's that guy. He's like 5 moves ahead of you, and he already knows what moves you're going to do before you even do them. And I think that's kind of what we saw in game 2. That fourth quarter, when they were up by 12, and then, of course, Denver came storming back, and I was on Miami, and I'm thinking, oh, boy, why am I even watching this? I just jinxed it. But then everything calms down, and I think that's where Butler's influence comes in really, really big. And I don't know, I agree that Nikola is the best player on the floor, the most key player on the floor. But in terms of his versatility, it's great. He can get triple doubles in his sleep with one eye, whatever. But when he has to deal with Spoelstra making all these moves, we saw that he only had 4 assists in game 2. And that was because of Spoelstra, in my opinion. The way he has switched that, playing zone, then to man, then getting Butler on him, Butler on Murray. I think Butler then becomes the most important guy on the floor. So that's my take. And I think this series is going to go into mid-June for sure.
Hey, we'll see. And I had a sweep at first, but now it looks stupid. But hey, we'll see. But Gary, what are your thoughts?
I have several. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of thinking about where I want to start with this. Number 1, Jimmy Butler can't continue to be the ineffective offensive scorer that he's been. You can't go 7 or 23 anymore because you're going to. It's gonna catch up, and then he's benefited off of the Caleb Martins and the Duncan Robinsons that have been able to bully them. But you are supposed to be the leader. You're playoff Jimmy, but you've had very much unplayoff Jimmy-like moments throughout this postseason. You've been bailed out. You're now facing a healthy Denver team, and this is what we said before. This team is as dangerous as they've ever been. You had them in the bubble, and they got to the conference finals, but they were missing Michael Porter Jr. Then they go back the next year, Jokic wins MVP, but now he's missing Jamal Murray. They're at full strength. This is, and I knew that they were going to get 1 out of 2. Miami was going to get 1 out of 2 in Denver. I figured game 2 because they were going to the exhaustion of going through 7 games with Boston and then having to go to that high altitude. Like, you knew that they weren't going to be that game 1 was going to be a wash. They responded in kind, and you look at Jokic, they let him score. He got his 41 points, only 4 assists. Now, a large part of that is that Denver's offense has to score so that Jokic gets those assists, but it didn't happen. He was neutralized in that fashion, and I know there's no coach that's ever going to say, "Oh, we're just going to let him score, and then we just got to shut down everybody else." But they're just going to let Jokic score and shut down everybody else. That's how you win the series if you're Miami. But if you're Denver, you kind of take Michael Malone's comments about the lack of effort to heart, and we're going to see what's going to happen in Miami these next 2 games. We talk about the elements in Denver. Let's remember, this is Miami in June. It's not a oasis for basketball. Let's say this is going to be the extreme weather finals. So this is kind of what we're going to deal with. We're going to see how Denver responds in the, pardon the pun, Miami Heat, and we're going to see how this will play out. I personally think this goes 7 games with Denver winning. I said Heat in 6, but the more I look at it, unless Jimmy's going to give you 30 points on 12, 15 shooting or something like that, he's tired, and it's going to eventually affect the rest of the team.
And Ben, before I toss it to you, Gary, do you want to bet $3 on that?
Bet $3 in Denver in 7?
Yes.
Yeah, sure, why not?
I think it's going to be 5. I think Miami only got 1, but we'll see. All right, $3, everyone. To all of our listeners out there, me and Gary Legend have bet $3. Actually, I'll up to $3 and a penny. But Ben, go ahead.
So I kind of wanted to just talk about real quick, show some love for Gabe Vincent, because through 2 games, Gabe Vincent has 9 3-pointers, and he's shooting ridiculous percentage from 3, 56% from 3. 9 threes in total. He's averaging 21 points a game, 19 and 23. And it just seems like his 3, it's like his shots matter. It's at key moments, it's at big moments. And you can tell he's got a lot of confidence. He is not afraid of the moment at all. So Gabe Vincent has been arguably Miami's MVP through 2 games. And Jokic, we know how fantastic and amazing he is, but sometimes the numbers still are even more than the eye test. 34 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 9 assists per game, 60% field goals. It's just the eye test, the guy's amazing. The numbers, the guy's even more amazing. It's crazy.
I mean, and it's one of the things, and as we're kind of going to the second thing here, John, is that there's several stats that for Tassi I think is very, very, very important. Ben, you had asked the question, do we think that it's Miami making adjustments or was low energy and unforced errors? I think it's a combination of both, right? Like we said, I said in the last episode last week that if Joker scores 40 and has less than 5 assists, and Miami, like you said, Ben, hums up a lot of threes, they have a chance to make it. Miami shot 17 of 35 from 3, which was good for 48 damn near 50%. I don't see that happening consistently. And then the rest of these other players, John, Michael Porter only had 5 points of 2 of 8 shooting. KCP only had 6 points of 1 of 4 shooting. And Aaron Gordon had 12 points, but off of 5 of 7 shooting. We have said it from the very beginning. The key is, John, Miami makes a lot of threes, and Joker has to score 40 points and has to have less than 5 assists. Your thoughts?
Well, I like the strategy with limiting the distribution of Jokic, because that gives everybody the ball, and that's where Denver is at their best. No doubt about it. I do think, however, we saw in the Boston series, Boston relies on the 3-point shot the entire season. They did in the playoffs. And when they did, even when on games where they were making a decent percentage of those threes, the percentage of 3-pointers made to points scored was too high. And they didn't make the adjustment to get more points in the paint which also takes time off the clock if you think of it. And that's where Jokic does come in quite handy here because he dribbles that ball quite a bit. He has great pivot. That all takes 4 or 5 extra seconds. It may not sound much, in one play, but if that happens all the time, it shortens the game, and that benefits Miami. So the idea of letting Jokic score 40 or whatever he's going to score is a double-edged sword, because if he scores 50, then you're in trouble. If he scores 30 to 40, you're okay. But I think if Miami, who, by the way, had the most player injuries this entire season, they missed the most games from the starters and bench players of any team, they're really not an 8 seed. They barely made it in. They lost that first game. They had a win to get in. And they're not even healthy. They don't even have Tyler Hero. We don't know what the status is with him. I thought he was going to be possibly back for game 3, but that's up in the air. And you have to question that too. Does that disrupt this chemistry that Vincent and the rest of these guys have right now? To have him take minutes from who?
Yeah.
Kevin Love is a very important part of this team. And you saw that in game 2, and you saw it during the Celtics series. So I got a little off track here, but I think the most important stat is you look at field goals or 3-pointers made as a percentage of points scored. Look at it at halftime, like you're grabbing a beer in game 3. And see what that percentage is. And if Miami is much, much lower, kind of in that 28 to 30% range, that really would make me want to put $1 on Miami in the second half. So that's my take on it.
Facts. And Ben, and those are all really good points. And it's always and thank you for your insight, because it's always good to bring a different flavor. So you make some very excellent points. The one thing, Ben, that they've been talking about is this zone play, right? They've been running a lot of zone. And there's just some numbers that I looked up that are very interesting. So in the zone, right, for Miami, their offensive efficiency, according to Second Spectrum, so we always got to do sources here, 129 points per game when they're going against the zone, where Miami's playing it in the finals, and 19.9 average time in seconds on 32 possessions. No zone, the offensive efficiency is less at 116.8 points, and it takes about 16.9 average seconds per possession on 131 possessions. So they actually score more against the zone than they do not against the zone. So I just think that they talk about like this number, and I really thought that stat was very important, because people thought that their offensive output decreases when they go against the zone, but it's actually opposite, but it takes them more time to score. But,
yeah,
no, that part of that Jokic thing I was mentioning is that when it's no zone and it's man up, that's where you see him in the paint, and doing the things that he does so well, and that does take more time off the clock. That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no doubt. That was just like a perfect pivot for that stat, and it was just so I love stats, and that number really stood out. I just had to put that one in there, but go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, part of their the zone versus man, it is more so about variety, mixing it up. It's not necessarily one is going to be more effective than the other. It's going to go through kind of, but Jokic, one thing that we haven't acknowledged, his IQ.
Yes.
It's like off the charts. So like you have to give different looks. You cannot stay zone all the time. Man, like you have to mix it up, and there will be points where the zone is working really well. There will probably be points where the zone Denver is eating them alive. That's just going to happen. I'm going to pause because we are Marissa, can you hear us?
Yes.
Marissa, how we doing?
Marissa, welcome.
Wow. It's been an adventure. It's been an event. Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Everything's good?
Yes. I've been listening to y'all, your conversation outside. Somebody thought it'd be really comical to pull the alarm.
Very good.
Happy summer. Kids are out.
Hey, but Marissa, meet John. John, meet Marissa.
Hey, John, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you, Marissa.
Nice to meet you.
Marissa, your crown is coming in Amazon. We just ordered it. It'll come in like 5 years.
All right.
Okay.
So, Marissa, may I continue my point? And then we'll
Yes,
toss it to you?
please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll toss it to you. So, I just saw you. I had to say hi, and I had to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
We'll give you the ball next.
Thanks.
Anyways, back to basketball. What we're talking about. Jokic is so smart, IQ wise. You have to throw different looks in an effort to confuse him a little bit. And at certain points, you will be able to do that. So the zone versus man, I think it's all about variety. So those stats are really interesting. Talking of stats, though, we keep talking about the assists and the threes. So here we go. Miami hits 15 or more threes in the playoffs. They're 6-2. So Denver, as a whole, combining regular season and playoffs, when Jokic has 5 assists or less, they're 4-9. And one more about the 40 points, it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit of an anomaly. So when he scores 40 or more points in the playoffs this year, they're 0-3. But I was just like, I was like, you know what? Let me try and find out if there's a way, like if he scores 40 or more, what about like all time? What's their record as a whole? It's actually like really, really good. All time in the regular season, when he scores 40 or more, they're 13-4. So it's weird. Is it a trend? Is it an anomaly? I don't know, but I think it definitely is.
Yeah.
What was that, Gary?
It's a bad time to have that stat. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, to be on the 0-3. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, but yeah, definitely making him score and get less assists. I mean, that's clearly Miami's strategy, as it should be. Marissa, go.
Well, I was saying that everything that you all were saying about your analysis from Game 2 is spot on. The couple of things that I want to say about Game 2 is this is now we have a series, gentlemen. This isn't going to be a sweep. If you look at the first game, almost all the starters for Denver were in double digits, and the complete opposite happened in Game 2. I mean, in Game 2, whatever happened at halftime, and we saw a completely different Miami Heat team, especially about the last 5 to 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, how they just basically disrupted Jamal Murray and just basically took him off kilter from his game. Even though he had 18 points, he had 27, I believe, in the first game. I mean, Jokic was the only one on paper that looked like that he was involved and did the homework, but he was carrying the load of the team because of the fact that Miami Heat, the cool coaching of Eric Spoelstra, bully balled literally Jamal Murray and took him out of the game. And so it's going to be interesting to see Game 3 if that same kind of energy that Miami, now that they figured out the cheat code on how to play Denver at their game, even though it took them almost literally 4 quarters to do it, we will see what kind of energy that they have tomorrow night going into a very sold out, hostile Miami Heat environment with the fans absolutely going crazy. I think the word got out that Miami, all the analysts and the studio analysts from First Take to, the NBA on TNT and all of them, and people thinking that this was going to be a sweep. I think Miami got the memo and they walked in pretty much literally angry, but it took them a while to get angrier as the game went on. And so now they're going to take that kind of energy on their side and hopefully turn this into their favor in Game 3.
I was really hoping for a sweep, though, so I'll look good. But
I know you were.
I was really hoping for a sweep. I really was hoping for one, but it's all good. It's all good. But all good facts, Marissa. Gary Legend, what you got?
I'm sorry, I went out again. Sorry, where are we at again?
I said Von Miller's the greatest, but no, what you got?
No, Marissa, to Marissa's point, you see, I'm just going to quickly gloss over there, right? This is a series. It's a best of 5. This is exactly what you want your finals to be. We didn't want it to be a sweep. Nobody really thought it was going to be a sweep. And I think you have to really give Miami and Eric Spoelstra a lot of credit. They have not had home court advantage at any point in this postseason. And look where they've gotten. And, we look at is this I was listening to the radio earlier, listening to ESPN, and they're saying, is this an anomaly or a sign of things to come? And I'm leaning more towards an anomaly because, if Miami had stayed healthy all season long, then it wouldn't be as much of a shock that they get to this point. They probably have a higher seed. I mean, let's be honest. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they win the division? They won their division this season because they were the only team besides Atlanta above 500.
Mm-hmm.
And they came within 10 minutes of going home during the play-in. But they got hot, and they've proven they've played lesser teams or teams with flaws that they're able to expose. And it's hard to expose the flaws on Denver right now because Denver's kind of proven themselves to be the better team, even though they won. Miami won last night or night before. But this is what you want. This is the best of 5, and this is where I think either playoff Jimmy steps up or we see Jokic continue to dominate and take home a Finals MVP to go home with a championship as well.
If I may, real quick, to Gary's point, I
Lisa.
wanted to add on to there. So, Gary, do you think that Jimmy's going to get hot in Game 3? Do you think the exhaustion between the high altitude of Game 1 and then now going back into his home arena in Game 3, does he make the adjustments, or do you believe still that somebody's Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin? Hopefully, he shows up around then the resurgence of Gabe Vincent. I mean, do you think he's well rested enough to play the Jimmy buckets that we've seen in the past few series?
Absolutely not. I think can he give you a game? Can he give you a playoff Jimmy type game? Sure. I can see him giving you between 35 and 40 tomorrow night. I can see that, but I can see him doing that in 32 shots, which again speaks to you can't continue to do that and win a championship. I'm sorry.
Right.
We've seen it. We have enough examples of the volume shooters not winning championships, and he'd fall into that category. So he has to give you an efficient game alongside a Gabe Vincent, alongside a Caleb Martin, or alongside, I saw Spoelstra wisely put Kevin Love in the lineup after not playing him in Game 1 because they have no size. And while he had I think it was like 2 for 9 shooting, he still gave you rebounds, and he did enough to disrupt Miami and Denver's offense to be effective. And this is where we go back to Coach Spoelstra. This is going to be his masterpiece, win or lose. To take this team that was that close to going home for the summer so much 2 months ago to this doorstep. Win or lose, this is what he'll be remembered for, more than LeBron and Bosh and Wade, by far.
No doubt. And and John, there's just all I'm just gonna say is that Miami got that one game, and they have there's 4 undrafted free agents for a reason, and to expect them to be able to night in and night out be able to perform, we're forgetting that Murray and Michael Porter were both first-round picks for a reason, and I think talent will prevail. But the next question I just really want to throw to you, John, is can Denver win a championship in the next 3 to 5 years? Well, if they win it, that kind of already answers the question. But let's just say past this year, based on the makeup, based on the salary cap restrictions, what are your thoughts on Denver's viability to be able to create a quote-unquote dynasty?
I think they can. I was just thinking about the problem the Celtics have right now is, do you pay $600 million for Brown and Jason Tatum? That's a big problem, and I agree with you, Gary. I agree with you 100%. I would not make that move. I would not make that trade. But Denver really isn't in that position to have to spend $600 million. I mean, granted, it'll be close, but they have also more draft assets available to them than most of the other teams that are in the playoffs. So I think they're going to be, as these teams are, status quo as much as possible. You compare them to the Sixers right now. I mean, talk about chaos in Philadelphia. I don't think anybody, the only thing more chaotic right now is what the PGA Tour did to their players by merging with LIV. I had to say it. Sorry.
You talked about it before you got on, buddy.
That's not on the agenda for tonight, is it?
No,
But
I mean,
seriously, I think Denver's in probably a really good shape to win the conference again, at least one more time over the next several years. And they have the centerpiece. I mean, they have the best player in the game right now. And Embiid won the MVP this year. Yep, he did. But when you watch, the eye test, I mean, who would you rather have on your team? I mean, they're both great. You kind of like Nikola to be your, if you're, picking a pickup game on the street, and you have Embiid and Nikola, so two guys are going to go 1-2. I think Nikola's going to go first more times than not. So I do think they get back, and I think they win probably multiple championships because I don't know who comes out of the East to beat them, because Boston, I think, is in disarray. Philly's not, quite right. Miami, can they do it? They're going to have to sign these guys now. It's a pretty big mystery. But I think Denver's in very good shape to be the perennial king of the Western Conference. One last thing, Miami, and I've been on Miami. You guys are just meeting me for the first time, but maybe you saw it. I've been on Miami a lot, and so much so that it is making me think: Am I being stupid taking them to win the World Championship? Well, the value was there, and the Circa and places like that. They were, because the public betting was so much on Denver, they were giving you value to take Miami. And if I do that bet 50 times over the course of a year, I'm going to make money on it. It really doesn't matter which ones win and which ones lose. Just like it doesn't matter if this one wins or this one loses. It's the whole portfolio of bets that really matters. So Miami's 11-3, coming off an upset win in the games played over the last two seasons. They just won. They're shooting well. You would think regression would be an issue. I don't think it's going to be. And then you mentioned Jimmy, underperforming. Well, what happens if Struss and these guys continue to shoot the way they have as a unit? And you look at the composite of those players, and they're shooting 48%, as someone said earlier, from 3-point. Does it really matter who's making the threes and who's scoring the 30 points? I think it's more important to look at it like, can Jimmy Butler and two other guys score 60 or more points? If they do that, they're probably going to win the game.
Facts. And Marissa, I think when it comes to the future of the NBA, there's going to be a lot more balance on these rosters where you're not going to see three superstars, because we talked about the new $17.5 million salary cap threshold, which teams aren't going to be able to use that mid-level exception, which that mid-level exception is going to be even more valuable now. What are your thoughts based on just that logic and just overall?
I think what we're seeing too, gentlemen, is let's not forget too that we're seeing the hopefully decline and the gone away of the word super team. Okay, we saw that in the last year or two, where the so-called super team, when they had on the Lakers team a LeBron, that AD, Russell Westbrook, it keeps slipping my mind how many, another person that was on the team, and they called them the super team. That whole analogy and analysis of that needs to just go away and be done with and never be raised again, because of what you just said, Jeff, of the money thing and the salary caps and everything else. My whole thing is that John had made an excellent point when it came to about Boston and being in disarray. And we had said this last week on this show, I believe, or previous, going into the NBA Finals, when the Celtics literally just basically crapped the bed and looked like they were in a whole disarray. Should they keep Joe Mazzulla? Yes, they should, but he's on a very short leash, very short rope as far as that he needs to, as far as coaching, come out the box and prove that he is that coach that completely can prove that he is the one to lead that and not be in the shadow of Ime Udoka, who did it his first year and take them to the finals. It's going to be competitive. And the question I wanted to ask John, and you made some very good points about it, is what Jeff said about Denver within a 1 to 3 year span, competitive and can win a championship. Because they have a great team and they're all healthy now, but what is it, that tweak that they need to have on their team to actually go into the next season, if they unfortunately do not win this season, okay, and they still keep the lineup that they have? What are some of the tweaks that they need to make to be that 100% tough contender and plow themselves right into the NBA Finals and finally hoist that trophy up for the city of Denver, the state of Colorado?
Well, that's a tremendous question. I think that the teams have gotten away from looking at guys like Kevin Love. There's a lot of those guys out there in the league, and they add so much that you don't see in the box score. You look at Kevin Love's plus minus, and to me, if I was a coach or a general manager, I could care less if he's minus for 5 games in a row. It's what he does and how he facilitates things on the court, and he's not the player he used to be. And there are other guys out there in the league that are players that they aren't the way they are. We see, Lowry's another guy comes to mind. And these guys, relatively speaking, come pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So, Moneyball just came to mind. You create a, kind of like a above average superstar type player by molding 2 or 3 bench players together, and then their combined time will equal, or be close to one of those, superstar type guys. And when you rotate the guys off the bench and you have confidence in your depth, I think that's the key to being a perennial champion in the conferences for sure. We've seen in the NFL with the Patriots, and I hope it's okay if I mention them. Sometimes I get booed on shows when I bring them up, even though they're losing now. But what I fell in love with them was that next man up. They had guys in the Super Bowl that were, oh, did you ever hear this guy? He's an 8th round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was driving truck in week 12, and now he's starting at left tackle. It's stuff like that I think the NBA,
Troy Brown,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Troy Brown and Deion Branch come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Gaffney.
Gaffney, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So once we get to the end of the season, Marissa, I think when the the lottery's done now, but there's going to be excellent players to grab, even in the last pick of the first round. There always is.
Mm-hmm.
These guys in the draft are world-class athletes. They're the best athletes on the planet, period. So Denver is going to get one of them. And a lot of times these top 5, top 7 players don't really pan out, which if you look at the bottom 7, a lot of those players actually do better than the top 7. So maybe Denver has an advantage there as well.
Right.
Yeah. All good stuff. It's going to be very interesting to see. This is going to be a very interesting offseason. But Ben, what are some of your thoughts? And then Gary.
So Denver in both games has played 8 guys. 6 of those 8 are under 30, and 4 of them are 26 or younger. So they're not going anywhere.
Right.
Like Jokic is the oldest of the bunch, and he's 28. Jokic, and then Gordon's 27, Jamal Murray 26, Bruce Brown 26, Porter is 24, and that I think second year guy Christian Braun, I think it's second year, was rookie. He's 22. So they're only old players that they play. Jeff Green and
KCP.
Jeff Green and KCP.
KCP.
So they're not going anywhere. And let's just be honest, there's a lot of unknown in the West. What are the Lakers going to do? What is happening with Kyrie? The Clippers, I've completely given up. Kawhi and Paul George are never going to be, they're done. It's not happening. But there's a kind of a lot of turmoil-ish in the West. Maybe not turmoil, but what is going to happen with Kyrie? What are the Lakers going to do? There's just a lot of unknown where clearly we know what Denver is. They're known. So I think they can win. I think, number one, I think they will win this year. And I think in the next 3 to 5 years, they can definitely win another one.
And Gary, you didn't hear LeBron and Kyrie are going to team up with Luka, and they're going to run it together in Dallas and win a championship. That's the word on the street, right, Gary?
It's impossible to happen. It's not. It's literally. And Gary, you're on mute.
Sign and trade. Sign and trade. Gary.
Sign and trade.
It ain't happening.
Yeah, I was cursing in the muting, so I just wanted to get that out.
Love it.
There's a lot. We all want things in life, and I understand why Kyrie Irving would want to have LeBron come to him as opposed to him going to LeBron. It's because Dallas is the only team that can offer him the money that he wants. They offer that max money that he wants and doesn't deserve. But that's another story for another time.
Mhm.
Why would LeBron, with his son going to USC,
Mhm.
all of a sudden want to leave Los Angeles to team up with Kyrie, LeBron's not stupid. We all saw what happened the last time they got together. Yes, they won a championship, and then Kyrie was like, okay, thanks, I'm out. Now you're gonna have LeBron get stuck in Dallas. Like that's not how his story's ending. So, like,
No, and you guys talked about sign and trade, but like, what would the Lakers accept in that deal?
I'll be the GM, they'll give me a call.
The Lakers wouldn't do
too.
exactly. And if Luka's not in the deal, the trade's not happening. And does Dallas
No.
upgrade if they give the LeBron instead of Luka? I don't know.
Listen.
Probably not an upgrade. So that's just a fantasy that's never going to happen.
We all wish for things. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I don't think this is going to be one of those things that Kyrie is going to get. To answer your question, as far as can Denver become this next dynasty, who else? The Warriors are getting older. You don't know. Bob Myers just left. We don't know. That's a team in flux right now. The Lakers are a team that is in a weird state. Like you said, the Clippers are done. Phoenix is the only team that really kind of stands out as like the real competition for Denver. And you saw what happened when Phoenix faced Denver in the playoffs. Wasn't much of a competition. Like, yes, they went 6 games, and yes, it was a less than Phoenix team, but I'm sorry, I can't see that being much, much different going forward. So maybe Phoenix gets them once or twice, but their windows is closing as much as any other team in the West. With Denver's, their window's wide open.
Yeah, we'll see.
There's no real reason why they can't turn into what the Warriors have been for the last decade for us.
Sounds good. And I know that we want to get to the what ifs, but I really think this Jimmy Butler question is a really, really, really good sizzler. And then we'll get to what ifs. But John, I want to throw this one to you because I'm really dying to know. And Marissa, is this Jimmy Butler if he even wins a title, or if he doesn't, will he end up like a Barkley, a Ewing, or a Karl Malone? If he doesn't win a championship.
Basically, is he going to win a ring or not? Is he going to win a ring, or is he going to end up like those Hall of Famers without a ring?
Yes.
Well, I guess first off, if I go first here, Marissa, I think it's okay if you play a career at the level of the names you mentioned and you don't have a ring.
Mm-hmm.
It's disappointing. All of them had their chances. All of them were in finals. It didn't work out. And at the end of the day, it shows how difficult it is not to just get to the final, but then to win 4 games after playing 82 regular season games and the grind of the playoff rounds, 3 rounds just to get to the finals, dealing with the media pressure and the media in your face every single minute of every single day. You know what? At the end of the day, he's going to be on a beach. He's probably going to be playing golf, maybe with Michael or something, and it's all going to be good. But Hall of Fame numbers, Hall of Fame stats. I think Jimmy's in no matter what. I think whether you want Denver to win this year, I think we all agree that we want Jimmy to get a ring because he is a warrior. He's shown it time and time again. And secretly, if a Denver fan is honest, he probably would quietly say right now, I'll pay you $1 not to say anything. I really like Jimmy Butler, and I think he's a great player. But that's kind of my take. Barkley too. I mean, what a tremendous player, and they listed him in the playbooks. I always remember it was like 6'7", sometimes 6'8", and I remember a couple of times I stood next to him, and I'm barely 6'3", and I was pretty much looking in his eyes. I mean, I'm not nearly as thick as he is. But
not quite big. John, not quite as gifted, right? Not great.
Yeah, I had other gifts. That's for sure. But the point is that he was, a guy that made the most of his talents, played at the best potential he could have possibly played, and it didn't work out. And And what were the other names you said?
Yeah, like we're saying, Barkley, Ewing, or Malone.
I was just giving names of Hall of
Reggie
Famers.
Miller.
I mean, all
I'm saying Reggie Miller, John Stockton. Like there are a lot of
You got Allen Iverson in there too.
Iverson,
hmm
Steve Nash,
Iverson
like,
especially.
I mean, some players didn't even get out the first round or even make it to a conference semis.
You
I
have
remember
to
that.
think about that. That you have many of the players that won rings with their respectable teams with an all-star player who is currently in the Hall of Fame, in the NBA Basketball Hall of Fame, that don't even get that opportunity to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. All they have is the ring itself. You know,
Big Shot Bob.
yeah. I mean, they don't even get that recognition. I mean, you know, they pretty much have won with their team being a bench rider or, you know, associated with, and now they're gone by the wayside, and, you know, we don't hear about them, or they're doing, you know, they got opened up businesses or whatever. Jimmy Butler, like John said, has put up phenomenal numbers, whether he wins a championship or not. It's Hall of Fame regardless. The talent is there. We've seen it. We've witnessed it. We've been honored to witness it. Him putting up insane shots and being that key pivotal player, that role player that has brought his team from what looked like the brink of elimination all the way back in certain games in the postseason. So, but I think with him though, if he does not capture this ring, and unfortunately at the end of his career, you know, he's had all these numbers and accolades and everything else, I think wholeheartedly when he sits by himself and he thinks about everything that he's accomplished, I think that he's going to be one of those ones that's going to be slightly jaded because of the fact he did not get the hardware. I mean, it's I guess when I think about it, the ones that we just rattled off and listed are, you know, 80s players, 90s players. This is a whole different spectrum in 2023 where, you know, they just recently did the NBA top 75 players, you know, of all time, and had, you know, showcased them in accolades. Klay Thompson, who won, 3 championships? He wasn't even in the top 75 to get that recognition, you know, so I don't know. With him, I just think that would be something that would not sit with his soul if he did not get the hardware.
Which is wild that he didn't even get.
Yeah.
I mean, not top 75, Gary. I mean, that's Klay Thompson. I feel he got.
There were a few people that got gypped off that list, and I just want to correct you, Jeff. Tracy McGrady did make it out the first round once. Remember, he piggybacked.
The Spurs. He got a ring.
Oh,
The
sorry.
Spurs.
Tracy McGrady, he didn't get a ring.
That was
Not with the
the one
Spurs?
where he lost to Miami in 7 games, and he retired right after that.
Okay. Didn't get a ring.
He saw the ring come close,
So
and then
he did get out
it
the
was
first
like,
round.
and it's gone. You got to be quicker than that.
Yep. Very much so.
Yeah, but go ahead, Gary. Your
Great point
thoughts.
made, Marissa.
Oh, go ahead, John.
With you know, I was just going to add that on the one hand, we as people, you know, can pat Jimmy Butler on the back and say, "Hey, you had a great career, man. Nothing to be ashamed of. You're, you know, class act, never in trouble. Did it all right." Inside, he's a tornado and ready to rip your face off for even bringing it up, because now he's going through the woulda, shoulda, coulda's, what if. You know, if I would have, oh man, I could have done that in that game, you know, and they roll that film over and over and over again. I can only imagine that the first couple years out, it's got to be pretty, you know, a lot of agony, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
I
I would say that point that you brought up, John, and it took him years and years and years to finally talk about it, is the infamous timeout that shouldn't have been a timeout, and that was Chris Webber.
Chris Webber, great point.
You know, and I mean, I've met him on a couple occasions. I know a few of the people on the Fab Five, and to go behind the scenes and to hear them discuss this years later, it took him years to go back to that university for some, you know, other reasons. I mean, booster funds, you know, and all that. But it took him a long time to connect with the rest of the players. The one that basically was the glue for him and Jalen Rose to get together was Juwan Howard. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of things that didn't sit right with him for many years after that, because that's all he saw. Like you said, with, you know, if Butler doesn't win this ring, all he saw was on ESPN, on other websites, and years, and it being replayed on ESPN Classics and other things on how he called that timeout that shouldn't have been, and for 20, 25 years to go by, it finally for him to now somewhat talk about it, but on his terms, you see. So
Thank goodness for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
No doubt.
He
no
just
doubt.
made me think of Bill Buckner.
Oh yeah. God
What
rest his
people
soul.
don't realize is that there was 3 errors in that inning.
Mhm.
His was the third one,
Mhm.
and that inning should have been over 20 minutes before he made that historic error. So
Mhm.
it's always what we remember last, I guess. But anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Ben, any other thoughts before we get to the what ifs, just for the sake of time? And then
I'm going to say Jimmy Butler is not going to win a ring.
Oh, no, they're not.
I'll leave it at that.
They're not. And like I said, I'll put $1.33 on anyone that wants to bet me that Denver wins in 5 games. $1.33. You can take it. I'll send it all in pennies. So what ifs? What ifs? Marissa, we got you up first here. You okay, Ben?
Yeah, I was
Kind of tilting
laughing.
over a little bit. Okay.
I was
Okay.
laughing.
Hey man, we at DTS, we care about well-being of people. Now I just want to make sure. Not too much laughter. It's all good. So what ifs?
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
expand on that first what if that I had. I actually had that written down.
Go
Was
for
the Chris Webber timeout? What did he not call a timeout? What if Michigan actually won that national championship? What would Chris Webber's career have been? Yes, he was an outstanding player for Sacramento Kings and in the face of it, but I have really recollected on what 5, 6 outstanding things of his NBA career. And gentlemen, to be honest with you on this platform and people that are watching, I really can't think of any, because unfortunately my mind goes right back there as a Michigan fan, as a person that was watching that game, of that moment that happened in time. What would have transpired from that whole entire moment, and what would have transpired with him? Would he still have been a Sacramento King? Would he have won NBA titles? Would the commentators not have brought up, which they had, about the infamous timeout, even though that he was 2, 3, 4 years into the NBA? Every time he made a failure, every time that it wasn't a great game, every time that he was not the high scorer, somehow the announcer would tie in that past failure into his current, that at that time, the current NBA career that he had. And so, I think about that.
As if that Thursday night game in Denver, as 4 years after that timeout, has anything to do with that timeout.
Exactly. And so it would always circle back, because sometimes in media they sometimes like to bring up they say it's their job, but they like to bring up the past and tie it into whatever at that time was current and everything else, which it didn't. When he started, when it was the rise of all this technology that we have. StreamYard wasn't in effect yet. Twitter wasn't in effect yet. It was somewhat the early stages of Facebook. Instagram was just a thought in somebody's billionaire's eye. So, what would have been with his career? And my second thing was, and it'll still irk me to this day, and it'll continue to irk me along with, Darko Milicic being drafted in the 2003 draft to the Pistons. Thank you, Joe Dumars. Is that play in overtime between my beloved Michigan Wolverines and the Ohio State Buckeyes at the Shoe, and what should have been called a short 4th and 1 that shouldn't have counted by JT Barrett.
Oh, JT Barrett. It's what, 2000 and...
Yeah. It shouldn't have been. That would have had us, I believe we would have won the Big Ten. That would have been a monumental upset. I believe Michigan was lower ranked, either lower ranked or not ranked. That would have been a monumental upset, and that would have prevented Ohio State from winning the Big Ten title.
Oh no, Ohio State not winning the Big Ten title. Oh no, that's such a bad thing.
But then they made it up to me the past 2 seasons. Michigan has won Stone Dome,
that's so adorable. That's so adorable. You finally got it. But we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. So I'm just gonna
Repeat,
keep this-
baby.
That's funny. I'll bet you. Matter of fact, I'll bet you $2.12 that that's not going to happen. But I'm just going to keep this. I'm just going to keep this one very quick. What if the Lakers lost in OT in 2002 in the Western Conference Finals in Game 7 in overtime? They won 112-106 in 2002. But what if they lost that series? What if they didn't win that? What would have been the what would have how would that have impacted Kobe Bryant's legacy? Right? Because they easily could have lost that one. They easily could have. Big game Bob hit that shot. They struggled in that series. They struggled. They easily could have lost that.
So the
Easily
bigger
could've.
game in that series was Game 6 when the Lakers. That's the game that is the Tim Donaghy scandal. It's
Yep.
that game. The Lakers had 27 free throws in the fourth quarter. 27, and that was Game 6. So I had that. I had that as well. What if the Kings went to the NBA Finals? Because arguably, if Tim Donaghy is not involved, they probably would have.
And they would have lost.
And then, what'd you say?
They would have lost to the Nets. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was just what if the Kings made the NBA Finals that year? That's it. But Jeff, that was yours. So sorry about that. Go with
It's
your
all
number
good.
2. Go with your second one, sir.
My second one, I'm just going to say we look back at 2016 and the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in like 155,000 years. Chris Bryant got the last out in that game. And I was thinking to myself, what if it goes to the 5-hole or what if he overthrows that ball? And I was like, Lord, I was holding my breath. And he did. But what if he made an error to overthrow it? What if he didn't make that play and the Royals came back? No, it's not against the Royals.
Indians.
Indians. I'm sorry, Indians.
Indians.
The Indians. What would that have done to the city? There would have been riots.
They would have burned Chicago to the ground.
John, look at your face. I know you probably were thinking like, what if he overthrew that ball, man? I'm just holding my breath, buddy.
I coached a lot of baseball in my day, and that was a regular season game. Your player gets the ball, and you're in a one-run game with a man on third, and it's the top of the ninth, and you're trying to clean up the game. At that last throw, I mean, it gets you every single time, no matter what level it is.
I mean, I just think to myself that would have been cursed. But John, Gary, then John, finish it up.
Okay.
Don't forget about me. I didn't go.
Ben, we didn't forget about you.
Go ahead, Ben.
Everyone go. I'm like a conductor.
No,
Everyone go.
Gary, go.
Okay, so Marissa brought him up earlier, so I'm gonna say, what if Chris Webber doesn't call that timeout? They go on to win the NCAA championship. The bigger what if is, what if Orlando doesn't trade for Penny Hardaway and you have a front court with Chris Webber, a young Chris Webber, and a young Shaq? How dangerous would that have been? Now,
They would have won a title. Guaranteed.
Without question.
Hands down.
And I love Penny Hardaway. Don't get me wrong, but like that one, I'm like, if they didn't make that trade, how crazy that would have been. Like that front court would have been some. You look at Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning, like that. That would have been the battle in the East. Like they would have been those two going back and forth because there wouldn't have been another center power forward combination that good.
I agree.
That's a good one. And that changes a lot too, because if Shaq wins 2 titles in Orlando, does he even go to LA?
Right.
Mm.
And then my other what if involves the 76ers. I was watching the documentary Everything But the Chip. Shout out to Brittany Hardy, Class 06, Go Tigers. She's the director on the film. So
Great documentary.
She's done a few of them. She kills it every time. So I just want to shout her out on that. But a focal point of the documentary was the trade for Dikembe Mutombo at the trade deadline or right before it. And while he provided a defensive presence, an obvious defensive presence, he's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. offensively, they lose. Go ahead, Ben.
No. That I was just doing his signature. No,
Oh,
that
yes,
wasn't
yes.
yeah, Dikembe's signature. That's all I was doing.
Oh,
I wasn't interrupting.
But the question was, how did Dikembe Mutombo fit within the flow of that team? And the reality is, as much as I love Dikembe Mutombo, he didn't.
Yeah.
So my question is, what if they don't make that trade, do they still make the finals? Because you were going up against prime Vince Carter in Toronto, and that his best chance at a championship. You're going up against a deceptive big three in Milwaukee of Sam Cassell, Ray Allen, and Glenn Robinson. So they got past some real tough teams in the East, and then they ran into the juggernaut that was my Los Angeles Lakers. But if they don't make the trade for Mutombo, they keep Theo Ratliff. Do they still make the finals?
It's a good one.
Very good one. Very, very, very good one. But go ahead, John, and then Ben, finish it up.
I'm next here.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
you
go
are.
ahead, and then Ben, finish it up.
Okay. I mean, my mind is spinning like a record player right now, like the vinyl editions.
This what if segment is just going to continue.
Yeah.
Continue. It's
I mean, I have so many ideas in my head. The number one, and I can do this in like 2 sentences. What if Drew Bledsoe would have never been hurt?
Oof, that's
That's probably one of the biggest
Yep.
ones on my list. And if that guy stays healthy, do we even know who Tom Brady is? Does Belichick have the guts to actually bench his all-pro starting quarterback in Bledsoe and start a little chubby guy from Michigan? I think there's an Ohio State person in the house. I can make a little bit of fun of a chubby person from Michigan. But, Brady was a guy who fell over the cones during the combine. But, they're the work ethic, okay? And we all know about the work ethic. But I often think about that, and how that affected Bledsoe's life off the field, too. I mean, when his career was over, he really never got over it. And one other one, if I may, and it's in golf, McIlroy. So he wins the U.S. Open by like 10 shots. And the announcer asked him, I'll never forget this because it's such a great teaching point for young players and your kids and everything else. They said to him, what's the difference between the 80 you shot in the Masters when you gagged your lead and you didn't win the Masters, and now all of a sudden now you're the U.S. Open champion? And he said right away, without hesitation, if I wouldn't have shot the 80 at the Masters, I wouldn't be talking to you now. And that's always stuck with me, and I think it's one of the best quotes I've ever heard from a guy who's won something like a world championship or a major event. So I know I have a gift of gab. I gave you 2, but those are the 2
That was
big
good.
No, those are definitely good ones.
That's
The Drew Bledsoe one, it's probably I think it's probably one of the top 5 all-time biggest what ifs. Just in general,
absolutely.
6-round draft pick from that school up north. It's always something.
Penn State plays them too.
All day, baby.
John, as you notice, we got a Michigan and we got an Ohio State guy. Ohio State
I'll
and a
look up the
Michigan.
Penn State flair then, and I'll flag I'll use the Penn State flag then for these shows.
Okay, sounds good. Awesome, love it. I love it. But Ben, finish it up here, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, so John, first off, that's a great one on the golf, and that I think he doesn't get enough credit for. That was 2 months later. A huge choke job of the Masters, wins a major two months later. So that's a really good one. So I'm gonna go along your lines of the Cubs, Jeff. I'm gonna go Red Sox. What if 2004 Dave Roberts is out? Is not safe. And the Yankees probably win that game, sweep it. They're 4-0, and then they go to the World Series, probably win, or let's say win. But why that's a bigger what if is the 86-year drought is now 87. And then it could be 88. So like that play, not that ended the drought, but
They could be the Cubs.
The magnitude of that play, and what if he was out? Like
That's excellent.
I
That's
didn't
a,
use that one.
It's a good one.
That's a terrible one. That one's terrible.
we got two
Yeah.
That's
Yankees
like the
fans
worst
here
one.
too.
It's
We
terrible.
wouldn't have had a movie named Fever Pitch.
Yes. Yeah. And then that was a good one. But yeah, I mean, they've clearly, the Red Sox, starting with that 04, they've won 4, including that one since then. But who knows? We could be in 2023 and their drought could be at 112 years or whatever the math is. The next one that I had was 2018, the Rockets. This was in the second year of Durant. Durant had won a title the year before. 2018, Rockets are on home court, could have beat the Kevin Durant Warriors, and we all know they 27 straight misses from 3, 7 for 44 overall. But they were, I didn't realize this obviously till I did a little bit of research, they were actually up in that game 11 points at halftime. In Game 7 at home, got a chance to go to the NBA Finals, and the people who like LeBron, me, Jeff, Gary, the 2018 Cavs were one of the worst teams to make the finals. So if the Rockets win that game, Harden and Chris Paul have a ring, most likely. I know Chris Paul was hurt in Game 7, but there would have been, 4 or 5 days off. He definitely would have at least tried to play in the NBA Finals. So, you would have Harden.
No, Ben. No.
You don't think he would have got hurt?
It's the Chris Paul postseason injury. It derails all plans. Like
Well, they would have beaten the Cavs, the Rockets.
Probably.
They would have beat the Cavs. So then
Probably.
Harden, even if Paul didn't play, he still has a ring. Harden has a ring. So
Okay. All right. All good stuff. Guys. Glad to have you guys back. Marissa, glad that you got your situation all worked out. John, sir, appreciate you coming on. We really thank you for staying a little bit long. We usually try to keep these a little bit under an hour, but we're all long-winded and we all just love sports. And unfortunately, you had to hear a Michigan fan speak, but that's okay.
God bless you. You're welcome.
Worst things.
But no, it's all love here. But what we like to do is we like to give people a moment who come on to just kind of tell what you do, your work. So do you want to give people your website? I know we did it at the beginning of the episode, but now that you're on, do you just want to you have your moment, sir? Feel free to take the floor.
Okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate being on this show. It's been a great hour here, and then it's certainly gone over because I have a gift to gab, and then I get a little carried away once in a while. But it's we all have that passion in sports. But you can find me over at John Ryan Sports and the #1 on Twitter. I put out a lot of content that's free, trying to give a lot of education for new gamblers out there, especially about the risks of gambling, and that it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to add a little bit more entertainment. It's not supposed to make you rich, and try to teach people the right way to do it so that it ends up being fun and not a negative life-changing event. So that you're not sitting in your house that's in foreclosure going, what if I would have won that bet? That's the worst thing that could ever happen to you. So PredictivePlaybook.com. I'm on RotoWire.com. I produce a lot of articles over for those guys. SportsMap Radio. I think you mentioned ESPN. And just go to the Twitter feed and you'll see the different outlets that I'm on. And now I'm on this one too. So this is all good.
Awesome. We definitely
Thank you,
definitely appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have to
Ohio
bring you
State.
back. Hey. But no, we'll definitely have to bring you back on once when football season's coming up. I'm excited for football. We're a month and a half away from NFL training camp. Can you believe it? We're almost there.
Hey,
NFL
Jeff,
training camp.
maybe for the next show, there's still a lot of veterans that aren't signed. Maybe we have a little segment there. There's still Zeke comes to mind, but there's other names too.
Definitely. But that's all, folks. Appreciate everyone coming on. To all of our listeners, we are going to be having episode 90 actually this Thursday. Going to be bringing on another guest to be able to talk a little bit about some Arizona Cardinals. That's going to be fun. The Arizona Cardinals. Yay. Make sure you stay tuned. And obviously some extra baseball. Definitely going to want to be doing some more shows so we can get to, I think it's actually 89, not 90. It'll be 89. So we're getting there. And always remember, Peace and love, and Hail Von Miller. You guys
Thanks,
take care.
thanks, John. We appreciate it.